Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to a new episode of the Genesys Cloud Community's Q&A show, the show where we answer your pressing questions in the Genesys Cloud online community. My name is Matt Lawson. I'm your online community manager, and today we're getting back to our glorious roots. In fact, this episode may very well remind you of the first episode that we ever did. No spoilers here. You'll find out what I'm talking about in mere minutes. But what I mean is, we're going to use this episode to answer questions that came up in the Genesys Cloud community, which I'm really excited for. This all happened thanks to a colleague of mine named Joe. Joe manages a branch of our professional services team. I reached out to him, let him know about the show, and asked if he could lend some of his team's talent to the program. Joe was happy to oblige, and it led to the very obvious name for this panel of experts, the above average Joes. Oh, who came up with that? It wasn't me. I would love to give myself credit for that, but I can't. Can't wait for you to meet the above average Joes. Dare say you'll recognize one of them. This will be our last episode of the season, but it doesn't have to be the last time that you see me. Please keep an eye on the Genesys Casual community. We will be announcing an event there very soon, where we're going to have an end-of-year party. Hopefully you can join us. I'd love to get to talk with you and hear what your holidays are like. More to be announced on that in the community, specifically the Genesys Casual community. If I don't get to see you there, hope you enjoy your holiday season. I can't wait to see you in 2022, and the above average Joes will be joining us. So keep your questions coming in the community. Even if the show isn't going, we're always trying to help you. All right, that's all I have to say. Hope you enjoyed the program, and to see you soon. I'm really excited to have you all here. Originally, when we conceived of this show, we wanted it to be about great Genesys experts coming together and helping our customers or our members get answers to their questions, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. You all have gone through the community, and you've each picked a question that you're either going to answer for the first time or add some additional information to. With that being said, it's your first time on the show for a lot of you. I think I recognize one of you from a previous recording, maybe. But I do want to go ahead and do some quick introductions and ask an icebreaker. We will do this in reverse order, so that means Sam will be going first. The icebreaker that I want everybody to answer is, what was your first job?
So my first job was in high school. I was working as a webmaster for a local organization that did education with regards to nature, and they did like summer camps and all kinds of fun stuff. So I did WordPress administration, did some videos, did all kinds of stuff with them. It was a fun job.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty nice first job. Mine was dressing up like a licensed bear that I'm sure some of you have heard about, and doing parades and fundraisers for schools. So I bet some of you have a better answer than that. Let's give Patrick a try. Patrick, tell us a little bit about yourself and what that first job was.
Hello, my name is Patrick Johnson. I'm a senior principal consultant here at Genesys in the PS practice. My first job was actually, I was probably about 7, 8 years old, and my grandparents used to own a balloon store. So I actually used to be a balloon twister. So not a clown, but I did twist balloon animals, and got to do several competitions and everything. It's not as cool as wearing a bear costume, but I think it's up there.
I don't know. The first time I wore the bear costume, I got a little cocky and suffered severe dehydration and was sick for a week. So maybe you did better. I am curious. You were working at your grandparents' shop. Were you actually on the payroll? Like, did you have to do a tax form, or was it all under the table?
No. So I did taxes depending on how much I made that year. So it was more like, hey, birthday parties, 2-hour event. I did a lot of corporate events. So, Christmas parties for companies, they'd have us come in and, do a 3-hour event or something like that, or a lot of company picnics when they did those. So
wow. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, a ghost from the past. So many memories just came flooding back to me. What is there to say? George Canal, welcome back to the show. Hard to believe. I think it's been over a year since you've done an episode with us. What have you been doing, my friend?
Probably been 2 years. Basically, I'm now a principal consultant with professional services here. So doing all the great stuff that these guys do. Been doing that since last October. And for that, as you know, did a lot with you and beyond and various other parts of the company. So it's great to be back with you, Matt. Good to see you again.
Great to be back. And everybody, please rest assured, George and I did stay in touch over the year. We just didn't get to have him on the show as often as I would like.
Yeah.
A lot of people know you. We know what you've been doing. But George, I don't think I've ever heard what your first job was. And I am very curious.
Well, I went to the Naval Academy. So my first job basically was 5 years indentured service with the U.S. Navy. But the coolest part of it was my very first role in the Navy was the 16-inch gun turret officer on USS New Jersey. So wow. I was in charge of shooting those big guns and sailing around the world, showing the flag, that kind of thing. So wow. that was a pretty cool first job.
That's a pretty good first job. If you ever make it to Raleigh, I have a BB gun shooting range in my backyard. We'll have to have a showdown. And we're recording this just a few days after Veterans Day. George, thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it. And
I'm glad I did it.
Your service I did it. Yeah, for the Navy and for the Q&A show. Community as a whole. Last but not least, the man whose background I am obviously quite drawn to. His personality isn't bad either. Bryce, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I know I want to get into what your role is, but maybe you should go ahead and tell us what your YouTube channel is about. No, I'm just kidding. You don't. How do you end up coming across a basement like that?
I have 3 brothers, and we all collected video games for a long time, and I ended up with a collection once we all got older. So there's about 600 behind me.
Wow. I bow to your inner nerdum. That is so cool. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you do at Genesys.
Yeah, probably a similar answer to the other guys. I'm a principal consultant with professional services. Mostly what I'm like the extra projects I'm doing now are helping train in the agile format and getting new tech leads trained up and product owners as well. So I'm very interested and working heavily with our agile transformation.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. What was your first job?
I think the first job I actually made any decent money at was being a golf caddy at a private. It was great. Good working outside, good exercise, meet a bunch of rich and influential people around the city. So,
and they led you to
great.
Genesys and that basement, I guess. That's awesome. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I don't know what else to say. Very cool getting to know you guys. I'm really looking forward to hearing what questions you all have selected to answer in the community. What do you think? Should we get going?
Yeah, sure.
Jump in.
Let's do it. So the first one of you above average Joes to answer a question is going to be the brave Sam. And Sam has actually picked a question from our developer community, which is great. For those of you who are interested in developing on the Genesys platform, this community is outside of my site, but we work really closely together and I love supporting them. And I'm thrilled that Sam can try to get an answer out there for something that may help some of our viewers also. Sam writes, Sam wanted to answer a question that was asked by Gavin about conversation types, or how to get them, rather. Gavin writes, "Hi there. Is there a way to obtain the conversation type, i.e. have the conversation ID, and all I need to know is the conversation a chat, call, fax, etc., but I can't seem to find a specific API call for the conversation type." Our previous guest on the show, John Carnell, actually took a shot at answering this and gave some information that Sam agreed was good, but Sam wanted to take that answer just a little bit farther. Sam, if you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
I want to first take a look at the Genesys Cloud conversation model so that you can understand the context of this question. So within a Genesys Cloud conversation, we will have one or more participants within the conversation. And a participant represents an entity that participated in the call. And that could be an external entity, such as a customer, or it could be an IVR, an ACDQ, an agent, or multiple agents. Each participant will have one or more communications associated with it. A communication could be a call, a callback, chat, email, etc. A participant can have multiple different communications associated with them. So as a result of this, a conversation does not have one specific type that's associated to it. It may have multiple types. So to determine those types, we will use our API endpoint to get a conversation by a conversation ID. And that's this API endpoint right here. Get API v2 conversations and then a conversation ID. So all it takes in is a conversation ID, and then it will output the detail for that conversation. So I've pulled up a conversation here using that API endpoint. And so we can see here within this conversation, we have an array of participants. And within each participant, we can see we have several pieces of information about that participant, such as its purpose, when it entered the conversation, the address of the participant, etc. We can also see that we have arrays within the conversation participant representing the communications that that participant was a part of. So for this conversation, we can see we have a participant that has a calls array that's populated with a call. And we can see this participant also has a callbacks array that's populated with a callback. You'll also notice that we have arrays that represent other media types in Genesys Cloud as well, but these are empty. So I can determine that this conversation was both a call and a callback due to these two entities existing here.
We hope that additional insight was helpful. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next presenter. So Patrick, for your question, you wanted to talk about this callback customer query that came in a couple of days ago from Kishara. Hope I said that name right. If not, deep apologies. They write, hello community. We're implementing callbacks and need some advice from other customers who have implemented this as part of their call routing. I'd like to connect with someone to ask some questions. Our good friend in the community, Robert, responded with some information, and Patrick looked it over, and as much as we appreciate Robert's answer, Patrick just wanted to add a few more suggestions to the pot here. So without further ado, I will pass it off to Patrick. Patrick, what do you have to share?
Thanks, Matt. So yeah, I'm going to go a little deeper into callbacks and some use cases. So generally, when you're looking at callbacks, they are a way to increase the customer's satisfaction. However, we also want to make sure that we are taking into account the agent utilization. So in most cases, I see where some companies, they transfer to a queue and then they play a little bit of hold music and then offer a callback solution. So in my experience, I feel it is best to do some type of check, whether that's the number of agents that are in queue, the estimated wait time, and then we can make decisions on that. So what I'm sharing here on my screen is an in-queue flow that it has put together. And you can see that as soon as you enter this flow, we have our main loop counter. But you can see right here, I'm making a decision. So what I'm doing is there's built-in variables within Architect, and one of those is a position in queue. So for this example, I'm saying if is set and the position in queue is greater than 5, then I would take this path, which is where we end up playing some hold music, playing their position in queue. We can, play some estimated wait time, things like that. And then we are offering a callback. If it's less than 5, generally, that means by the time we offer the callback and they enter their phone number, whether or not it's the Annie or they would like to receive a callback at a different number, they very well may be the next person in line. So it's not really efficient to do a callback. So they're setting up a callback and then they hang up the phone, and then within a few seconds, they're already receiving a callback. That's where we want to go ahead, and if they're going to be up soon, we'll go ahead and just keep them on the phone. Otherwise, if we're expecting a longer than normal wait time, we'll go ahead and give them that option. Inside of our resource center, this is where you can go in and find some of these built-in variables, and you can come in here and look at the in-queue calls. And you can see here we have, a variable for estimated wait time, so we could make a decision step based off of that. We can go off of position in queue. And then as always, you can refer to our resource center, and we have an entire section on callbacks. There's so many different ways to do this. You can use the standard out of the box callback that you use within the in-queue flow. We have the ability to, actually have the call go to an agent, and then maybe something happened. They can schedule a callback, and the agent can actually schedule that. You can even utilize dialers to make it a little bit more efficient in that aspect. So a lot of different options there. And that's where we just kind of wanted to talk about those different options. Another item that I wanted to talk about, or another use case for callbacks, is actually in a method where you may have a use case to flow those out. So maybe it's, approaching 5 o'clock, which is when your contact center closes. And unfortunately, your business does not allow you to pay overtime. So a lot of times I'll see companies that will create basically what's a flow out. So we would end up having a scheduled check performed, and at 5 o'clock, they start pushing those calls to a voicemail service where generally they'll indicate to leave your name, number, and then an agent will call you back the following day. Or if you have, a max wait time that you want callers to wait for. So that's where it might be beneficial to do a more custom solution, such as like a scheduled callback. So to set that up, we can set up a data action to use the Genesys Cloud APIs to create kind of a custom solution to do a scheduled callback. So I'm showing here that data action. So we can see here, the data action, and then the configuration. We can see the API that we're calling here and the request body. And then we can see these contracts that we have set up. So in here, we would be collecting the callback number, the username if we have it. And then it's important to get the scheduled time, the queue ID for whichever queue that they were a part of, a script, any priority or preferred agent, routing, as well as a language. So in a call flow example here, for a scheduled callback, I have a common module that we can flow calls out whenever we hit a certain time. Maybe it's after hours or it's a max wait in queue. So in here, we're collecting the date and time. So by default, that is in universal time zone. So in here, I'm using a update data statement to be able to convert that to central time. And then here I'm doing a check to make sure that it is within those hours that we will offer a callback, for example, or a scheduled callback. And then what we're allowing is the customer to schedule exactly when they would prefer to get a callback versus leaving a voicemail. An agent calls them when they're available, but maybe that person, is actively, at work or just not available to take that call. So obviously that is not a great customer experience. We already had to flow them out where they were waiting, and now we try to call them back, and it's not an ideal time for them. And of course, that is a waste of the agent's time making that call back, and then they're not able to actually serve that customer. So this allows us to get a better customer experience by offering this, as well as an agent utilization to make sure that the agent is able to speak with that member and handle their issue.
Thanks so much for that walkthrough, Patrick. I know in particular they were hoping to connect with some customers. So if you're watching this show and you want to connect, please check out the community, find this question, connect with them. I know it's the holidays and times are tight for everybody. So Kishara, just to keep in mind, we also have some Genesys Beyond courses that talk about callbacks that might be beneficial. And hopefully you can find some of the resources like Patrick recommended to get the answers and knowledge that you seek. But thank you for being in the community and hope to get more questions from you. All right, so moving on to the heavy hitter. Looks like George is up next. George, you found a question for us? Brian De La Cruz, you're a lucky man. Our very own George Ganal is going to give you his answer to your question about campaign sequence. Continues from where I left off the next day. Let's see here. So according to Brian, we have 4 campaigns dialing in a sequence every day. Genesys Cloud default behavior resumes dialing once there are dialable numbers for the campaign. It was on when it ran out. We would like it to start from the top of the sequence every day. Suggestions on how to do this in rules or anywhere else. George, what do you think? Do you have an answer for Brian?
I have a bit of an answer, something I've kludged around with in the past when I wanted to automate something for dialer that's really not in the rules or in the sequencing or anything like that. So I'm going to take a little dance on the wild side here maybe and start looking at something that I do with the SDK. I'll take a look at this outbound API SDK, and it's in the Developer Center. You drill down through the software development kit section. I went to the one for JavaScript because I use Node.js, and I use this particular piece of the SDK to reset a campaign. Sorry there. And what you can do is you can set up your script, your own personal script you're going to run. And what I've done on my own machines, this is just something in my environment that I use to, for my own purposes, I actually reset all of the records to as not having been dialed. So I reset them back to basically uncalled because I need that for our Beyond environment for some of our demo stuff. But this is resetting the campaign. So we want to reset the campaign progress and recycle the campaign, basically what Brian was asking about. I have not found a way to do that, like I said, through rules or anything else in the interface. So on my machine, I've got a server that is exposed to the internet, and I have Node.js installed on there. And then I just created a script that can be scheduled using the Microsoft scheduling feature that's built into Microsoft servers. And every day, or in my case, 4 times a day, I run that script automatically through the Microsoft scheduler, and it just goes and modifies my campaign. For what Brian's asking to do, he would actually create a script using this particular piece of the SDK. And you can just see here, it would be a Node script, in my case, whatever language Brian wants to use. You require the SDK. You're going to set your access token, and that's also going to be done. I'll show in a moment how you do that with the implicit grant and all that kind of stuff. And then you set your API instance, campaign ID. You have to know what the campaign ID is, so you get that from the interface. And then you just run the functionality there. So the directions are there in the Developer Center. You can find those pretty easily. I instantiate the SDK. I put in the client secret. I put in the client ID, and then I actually log in using that client ID and secret. In this case, I've got a big long contact list body that I'm going to use, but set the constants. And then down at the very bottom, after all those things that I'm doing, we're just going to post that outbound contact list in this case, or if you're doing the other call to reset the campaign, you would use what's in that Developer Center article. And then I just have some error caching console log, which really doesn't show anything because it's running on a server in the background, or if there's an error, it can catch the error there and then go on. But from there, yeah, I would set it up, like I said, using the Microsoft scheduling capabilities built into the server. And for his case, if he wants to restart everything every day, then I presume that Brian would set it up to run through the scheduler at 8 a.m. every day before they start their campaigns for the day, and it would reset everything for each of the campaigns that would be listed in this SDK call, and then he would have everything done up the way he said he would like to have it done up.
Everything that you just showed in that was fake. We're not giving away any kind of personal information or anything, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
those are from a random name generator and set it all up for our education domain.
Awesome. Wanted to make sure some people in New Zealand were not discovered by our show unintentionally. Awesome. George, thanks so much for that information. Brian, hope that was helpful. Not sure exactly what kind of developer resources you have, but we hope that was helpful and you can find your way through it. All right. Last but not least, just one more to go. Bryce, what do you think?
Let's do it.
You ready? All right. Cool.
I am.
Let me go ahead and bring up your question. Bryce, for his question, decided to pick a question from a new member, which I'd love to see. David Sullivan, welcome to the community. Hope you find this answer helpful. David wanted to know about filter interactions by a null value. David writes, I am looking for a way to filter interactions that have a null value. For example, rather than view all interactions with the wrap-up code of default wrap-up code, I would like to view all interactions where the wrap-up code is blank. Specifically looking for interactions with no user or queue so we can look to see why they did not reach a queue or agent. Woo, sounds like a big question. Glad we have Bryce to tackle it. Bryce, what do you think?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so I see stuff like this all the time. This is a test org that I set up a long time ago, and you can see there are quite a few blank entries in here for calls that never reached an agent or emails that didn't get a wrap-up code assigned. So, I've seen several questions when researching about how do we filter on different things. And within the app, we are a little limited, which unfortunately isn't great. But I do have a workaround that we can use. So while I can't filter, for instance, open up a filter for as he said, wrap-up code, and I can't enter in like a dash because if you see on wrap-up code, it's dash if it's empty. I can't enter in a dash. I can't enter in blank or a space. It won't let me not set. Unfortunately, it doesn't work either. But what I can do is I can export this data. So if I export the data into, say, a CSV, then once it's ready, I can open it up with my exported data and filter from there. So I can use an external application to then sort by users, and that way the blank ones will be at the top, or sort by wrap-up code where I can filter out from there. This works on other things we also don't have filters for, like for email subjects. You can see the subject, but you can't filter on it. If I could open it up as as an Excel file or any other CSV sorting application you want, you can filter by then and then export out of that file the list of interaction IDs. You take those interaction IDs through the API or plug them into a filter in interactions and get that list from there.
Cool, perfect. And just for the heck of it, because I love some friendly competition, leading into this meeting, we discovered that George had also prepped for this this question that was before us. George, anything you want to add that Bryce may have overlooked?
The only thing I would add, Bryce did exactly what I was going to talk about, with the exception of one small bit for me, for just a quick look at trying to find some of those interactions. I would filter based upon direction and initial direction, both being inbound. And even there, I still have some users showing up. So I would also do a little search here for answered, check just no for answered. And even there, supposedly, this email should not have an answer, but it's got a user on it. So it gets me a pretty quick view of most of the ones that have no queue, no wrap-up code, no users. This one is an email that probably has maybe one that never got, it's interaction currently in progress. So it's sitting in queue. So part of it was answered the first half of the conversation. The second one is still sitting in queue. So it's not been answered yet. So that's where email gets a little weird, because it may show that an agent was connected on that that interactions view level, but there might also still be one message within the conversation that's still not answered. So
That's
you
a
can
good
see something
point.
like that.
My example in my test org, I've got one that's been connected for 37 days because it's been sitting in an agent's queue.
Yeah.
So to answer more specifically about the wrap up, it's usually because it's either not been answered or it was disconnected somehow without being routed to an agent. It's the filters he showed. Make sure it's all inbound. Make sure it hasn't been answered will usually get you what you're looking for.
Yep.
Cool. Perfect. Guys, what can I say? Thank you so much for joining me. It's been really fun hearing from you. And the best part is our collaboration on this show, it sounds like it's just beginning. Moving forward, I hope to have 1, 2, 3, 4 of you back on as many episodes as possible to answer some of these tough questions. So I'm really looking forward to that. Guys, truly a pleasure. I think your answers will be a great relief to some of the members in the community. And I can't wait to see you again in the new year. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. We hope it was helpful and maybe a little bit entertaining. Each week, our hosts and experts review community discussions and debate what content to discuss, so your voice matters. Did we miss something? Do you have a question for the show? Let us know. Join the conversation at the Genesys online community. As a Genesys customer or partner, you can create an account. Just click the sign in button found on most pages and follow the necessary instructions to create an account. Also, feel free to email us at qashow@genesys.com. We'd love to hear from you. If this is your first episode, welcome. You can view our entire archives. Go to the Helpful Links panel found on most community pages and find the QA Show archive that interests you. We appreciate your support of the show and the community. Cheers!